Thanks, Cathaoirleach. First of all, I'd like to say that I was delighted to support the nomination of Deputy Ruth Coppinger for Taoiseach. A historic day indeed for Dáil Éireann, and previously of the nomination of Richard Boyd Barrett. I've always believed in the unity of the broad left, and I'd hoped down through the decades that the years that my former party would have been, if you like, the fulcrum of such a broad left government, and would have led such a government. I was elected, Cathaoirleach, as a right to change candidate and an independent for change, and my preference still is for change. I think we should have a change of government. I think that was the decisive feeling, if you like, of the people, and I think, in particular, all of those who stood on the platform of the right to change, that we should perhaps have a single nomination for Taoiseach, and that again, broadly across the political spectrum, people should support that, and we should try to, if you like, fulfil the will of the people in that regard. A few days after the general election, I received an invitation from Deputy Micheál Martin to meet him and to discuss the issues of concern and what he saw the future and what I saw the future for our country. And I think we had a very pleasant meeting for about 45 minutes. I outlined to him obviously the ferocious and huge concerns from my own constituency, especially in relation to housing, to health and disability services, and the requirement for the abolition of water taxes. At the end of the meeting, I said obviously I couldn't support his nomination for Taoiseach because I believed on so many areas Fianna Fáil wasn't prepared to take the dynamic action that was required, and I couldn't fulfil my right to change mandate. A few days later then, Taoiseach Kenny also kindly invited me to a discussion, and again we went through, I think, the key areas of concern which are facing the people, and the Taoiseach, I think you reiterated again the policy stances that yourself and your party had taken in the general election. I said also at the end of that meeting that I couldn't support the nomination of the outgoing Taoiseach because I'd been elected as a right to change candidate, and because the people badly wanted change, and I thought that was one of the fundamental results of the election. I was struck, however, in both of those meetings, Cathaoirleach, by the fact that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have so much in common. I remember, for example, the previous Speaker, the Minister for Housing, when on this side of the House we were urging him desperately to bring in serious rent regulation, and he wouldn't do it. And he couldn't do it because I felt on that critical policy issue, which so much affects the provision of social housing, he was opposed relentlessly, I think, by Fine Gael, and indeed across as I heard myself, I was shouted down by Fianna Fáil on that particular subject. So there's so much in common, and I think the two Conservative parties, therefore, there is a duty to govern. The 6 weeks have passed. We do need a government urgently. Those problems, such as the dreadful situation, and again that heroic young woman, Miss Erica Fleming, is in the building right now, explaining to deputies the circumstances of herself and her family, and the other 1,600 children, Taoiseach, who are living in homeless accommodation in hotels this evening. So we do need action urgently. The Conservative parties getting together can do that. I'd be happy to oppose them. If, however, they don't do that, I think there is an obligation. Just a final point, Alan. Sorry, Deputy. There is an obligation on the right to change parties and progressive independents and progressive parties to put together a government in this state, and the Conservative parties, one or other of them, can see what they can do to support such a government, which I believe would be very dynamic, because we've seen in the past, as you'll remember, Cathaoirleach, some of the deputies from the left have often been the most effective ministers.
Deputy,
thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you. Deputy Catherine Murphy.